Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. The Union Cabinet today accepted the recommendations made by the Ram Nath Kovind Committee on One Nation, One Poll. The rationale and the logic for having One Nation, One Poll is simple. In a country as vast as India is, we have either general elections or some state assembly election virtually every 6 months, as a result of which the government machinery, whether it's central government or state governments, are focused on polls from time to time when they should be focused on the issues of governance that affect the people. Therefore, to save costs, to save resources, to save time, and of course for better efficiency of government resources, it is better to do all of these polls in one shot. That's the logic, that's the rationale for having One Nation, One Poll. The opposition, though, is dead against it. Certainly the Congress Party, other members of the India Alliance say that this runs counter to the Constitution, counter to democracy, and counter, most importantly, to the principles of federalism. And the issues that matter in a national election are very different from the issues that matter in a state election or even local body elections. And therefore, they can't be seen from the same prism. It's different strokes for different folks. But here's what the brass tacks is. This is what it boils down to. If the BJP-led NDA government needs to conduct One Nation, One Poll, it needs a constitutional amendment. The constitutional amendment needs to be passed in both houses of parliament, both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, for which they need 2/3 of the members who are present in the House and voting to pass this constitutional amendment. So which means, for example, if there are all 543 members in the Lok Sabha are present and voting, then the government would need at least 367 of them to vote in favor of One Nation, One Poll. That's just for Lok Sabha and state. Then the business of local body elections, preparation of single electoral roll, all of that will also require 50% of all state assemblies in the country to ratify One Nation, One Poll. Given the BJP's reduced mandate in the 2024 general elections, can they realistically implement One Nation, One Poll?
One election to Lok Sabha and all legislative assemblies in 5 years होना चाहिए, जिससे कि देश में डेवलपमेंट चलता रहे, जो बड़ा एक मिशन, बहुत बड़ा एक डिसरप्शन रहता है, वो ना हो।
कैबिनेट की मंजूरी एक स्वागत योग्य निर्णय है। बार बार जो थोपे जा रहे थे चुनाव, उससे देश को निजात मिल पाएगा।
उसको नहीं मानते, ये नहीं चलने वाला है डेमोक्रेसी में।
नरेंद्र मोदी का पूरा गेम प्लान यही है कि नेशनल पार्टीज रहे और दूसरे तमाम रीजनल पार्टीज, छोटे पार्टीज हमेशा के लिए खत्म हो जाए।
The one nation, one election is not possible and practical.
जो भाजपा चुनाव से डरती है, जो भाजपा महाराष्ट्र में चुनाव हरियाणा और जम्मू कश्मीर के साथ नहीं ले सकती, जो भाजपा हमारे महाराष्ट्र में लगभग 30 शहरों में चुनाव नहीं ले सकती, वो ही अभी वन नेशन वन पोल के बारे में बात कर रही है, तो जोक हो गया।
All right, first let's tell you what the Ram Nath Kovind panel recommended. Those recommendations have been accepted by the Union Cabinet today. The panel suggested that the Constitution should be amended to enable simultaneous elections for both state assemblies as well as the Lok Sabha. Now, in the first step, simultaneous elections will be held to the Lok Sabha as well as all state assemblies across the country. For this, no ratification by the states will be required for the constitutional amendment. But yes, in both houses of parliament, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, this constitutional amendment has to pass by a 2/3 majority. In the second step, elections to municipalities, panchayats, other local bodies will be synchronized with elections to Lok Sabha and state assemblies in such a way that local bodies are held within 100 days, roughly about 3 months, of elections to the Lok Sabha and to state assemblies. This will require ratification by no less than half of the state assemblies. Now, for the purpose of preparation of single electoral roll and electoral photo identity cards for use in elections, all 3 tiers of government the constitution must be amended so that the Election Commission of India can prepare one single electoral roll and one single election ID in consultation with the states. These amendments will require ratification, again, by no less than half of all the states. In the event of a hung house, whether it is parliament or whether it is a hung legislature, a no-confidence motion or any such fresh event, then fresh elections should be held to constitute the new Lok Sabha or the State Assembly for the remainder of the term of the House. So, for example, if a House gets dissolved or if a party loses majority after 2 years of its term, then elections need to be held for the remaining 3 years of the term so that when the election subsequent to that is held, then it is timed to the national election. And finally, to tackle all the logistical requirements for this, the Election Commission of India is in consultation with the state election commissions, and they will plan and advance steps that need to be taken accordingly. Now, here's the thing. We had one nation, one election. This is not a new idea. In fact, when the country first became independent and when the first set of elections were held, at least for the first decade plus, from 1951-52 all the way to 1967, simultaneous elections were the norm. When Pandit Nehru was the first Prime Minister, the first election in 1952 for the Lok Sabha and state assemblies were held simultaneously. Simultaneous elections then continued in India for at least a decade and a half, all the way from 1952 to 1967. Then there were internal conflicts in the Congress party which led to the split of the Congress party. There was an Indira-led minority government, helped of course by the DMK and the left, and of course there was the Congress O. Indira Gandhi then dissolved the Lok Sabha and called for early elections in 1971 on the slogan of Garibi Hatao. She severed the national and state polls. They were held separately. There was also extensive use of Article 356, which is President's rule, in several states in the 60s, 70s, all the way through up to even the 90s, and that prompted multiple midterm elections. There's also instability via coalition governments, sometimes the lead party's internal strife, which caused a lot of fragmentation to the poll calendar. But the criticism remains that the rise and fall of unstable governments could hamper the entire poll schedule. Also, that this could be a big disadvantage to smaller parties, regional parties, and this runs counter to the idea of federalism, which is enshrined in the Constitution. Let's now go to a piece of breaking news that's coming through. On this front, on the One Nation, One Poll, the government has appointed senior ministers to consult with all political parties across the spectrum to try and build consensus on One Nation, One Poll. The Deputy Leader of the Lok Sabha, Ram Nath Kovind, the Union Defence Minister, Parliamentary Affairs Minister, Mr. Kiren Rijiju, and the Law Minister, Ram Nath will start holding consultations with all political parties. Remember, the numbers stack up in a way that if all members of the Lok Sabha are present and voting, then the BJP or the NDA requires 2/3, which is 367 out of 543, to vote in favor of the constitutional amendment. Payal Mehta has more details on this. Payal, how confident, how realistic is the BJP and the NDA of getting this 2/3 majority both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha? Because particularly in light of the verdict that came out in June, where the BJP's numbers have been reduced to 240, the numbers quite don't stack up for the NDA.
Yes, Zaka, if all members of parliament are present in both houses of parliament, still then the BJP falls or the NDA falls short of two numbers. And the message that the Prime Minister, in fact, gave to his cabinet colleagues was this, that, you have to get consultation as the way forward. This is a reform, which is a multiple decade-long pending reform that people have been speaking about. So there's no politics involved in this, and that's the reason Rajnath Singh, who's said to be everybody's friend and nobody's enemy, somebody who enjoys a lot of reputation and regards amongst people, he's been asked to hold consultation with various political parties, especially regional parties, where of course in Uttar Pradesh, Rajnath Singh has been a long-time politician, will have an impact. As far as the Northeast is concerned, Kiren Rijiju is a very, very effective member of parliament. He's also the Parliament Affairs Minister, so he'll be asked to, bring in his good reputation and, his rapport with people to, in fact, make them come on board as far as this is concerned. Of course, Law Minister Arjuna Meghwal will also be holding a very important discussion as far as this is concerned. Because not only is the 2/3 majority is the concern for the BJP and the NDA, but when you have to bring in these laws and in fact get implemented to hold assembly, to hold local body polls, panchayat polls, etc., you also need to get it ratified by 50% of the states, and not necessarily the BJP will have over and above 50% states, in terms of their government as well. So that's something also is going to be extremely important. So that's the whole idea, and the Prime Minister's message is clear that this bill will have to be passed through consensus.
All right, Payal, we'll leave it at that. We'll see how the story plays out. Of course, both in the parliament and, of course, in the state legislatures, this is going to be a numbers game as far as the BJP and NDA are concerned. Let's now open this up to our panelists. Clearly, out of the 47 parties that the Kovind committee interviewed and asked for their views on One Nation, One Poll, we're given to understand 32 of them said that they're in favor. This includes very small parties as well. And 15 of them said, no, they're not in favor. Shazia Elmi, national spokesperson of the BJP, Salman Soz, national spokesperson of the Congress Party, Rashid Gidwai, senior journalist, and Smita Prakash, editor of ANI, are all now joining us. Salman Soz, let me start with you first. What is the opposition to One Nation, One Poll? After all, when Pandit Nehru was Prime Minister from 1952, the first general election, all the way up to 1967, we had One Nation, One Polls. It was backed in 1996-97 by the Justice Jeevan Reddy Commission, then the law commissions, both in 1999 and subsequently in 2018, had said that we should go back to One Nation, One Poll. Why is the Congress Party, why is the India Alliance opposed to it when Pandit Nehru won 3 elections, which were simultaneous elections?
Zaka, I'll only talk about the India Alliance now and where the country is today. As far as I can tell, Zaka, and I think most people sitting at home would agree, the biggest issue for this country is not One Nation, One Poll. We can't even have one nation and 3 state assembly elections together. We can't even have one election and 1 day poll. So now we're going to talk about all these. These are kind of red herrings because the country is going through a very difficult time. The economy is not doing well. Unemployment is really high. We're not creating enough jobs for our young people. The future, as we seem to see it, it's not going the way it should be. So as far as the BJP is concerned, they've always come up with ideas which they do not think through at all. Demonetization was there. They messed up the GST. Now this. They can come up with all this. They'll remember the lockdown. So the BJP has this penchant for coming up with these big things which are ultimately bad for India. Now, this country is a very, very diverse country. It has big states, it has small states, and within those states, there is a lot of diversity. There are small parties somewhere, there are big parties somewhere. There are very few really big parties in this country. What we cannot have is a situation where voters do not have the ability to have the full access to their democratic rights, their democratic choices, for example. So, as far as I can tell,
how is One Nation, One Election curtailing those choices?
Let me explain. For example, if you take the case of, say, a small state like Manipur, right now, Manipur is going through hell, and of course, the BJP does not seem to care much about Manipur. But the people of Manipur have local issues that are very different from what the national level issues are in the country.
So they're free to vote on those issues. Who's stopping them from voting on those issues?
No, but that's the thing. It's not, it's very easy for us to say that, well, what's stopping them from making all these choices in one go? But some political parties have many more resources to bring to bear on the elections, whereas most other parties do not. Okay. So we're going to create an asymmetry.
So you are saying it's not going to be a level playing field. Some parties have more access to money and resources and so on. Okay, quickly, 10 seconds. I've got 3 other panelists waiting, please.
And I think it is a wonderful thing for our people to be able to hold the feet of politicians to the fire by getting them to come for assembly elections, getting them to come for parliamentary elections, getting them to come for
So you're basically saying it's a built-in mechanism to keep them in check because every 2 years they have to come back to you. Okay, let me ask Shazia Elmi this. Shazia Elmi, the biggest hindrance to One Nation, One Poll, as we've seen in the last few weeks when the Election Commission declared dates for Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir, and in the Election Commissioner's own words, the reason they're not able to club Jammu and Kashmir as well as Haryana and Maharashtra was because of lack of availability of security forces. And you heard Aditya Thackeray today say you can't hold 3 state elections together in one go. Where are you going to hold One Nation, One Poll?
So first of all, I'd like to begin with answering Salman Sozji. I think after meandering around a little bit, he came to the point and said that people have a right to exercise their choice whenever they want, and local issues differ from state issues, differing from the national issues. Now, because ever since the constitution has been adopted, for the first 4 elections, 52, 57, 62, 67, they were done according to the way it was meant to be. Then, of course, the toppling of governments started, and 99 times was when Article 356 was used by the Congress party, 50 times by Indira Gandhi alone, which led to this unfortunate situation. Now, it's the mandate of the elected MLA or the MP to represent his constituency. And I think that's what comes in the way. And there are many other reasons. I'll talk about security deployment, paramilitary forces, forces per se, expenditure, timings, common people, rallies, all of that. But look at the basic principle of this and the rationale. The very fact of the matter that an MLA and MP who should be dedicated to his constituency, exactly the point that Salman Soos tried to raise, instead of talking about exactly what you're meant to do in your constituency, in your state, as a CM, as an MP, as an MLA, even as a corporator, what are you busy doing, especially the national parties, going from one election to the other and campaigning, instead of concentrating on the implementation of all the
No, but Shazia, is that not a good thing?
And other schemes that ought
If there's
to be
a
done.
legislator
So
who's elected, let's
No,
say
no,
from Uttar
that's very
Pradesh,
good. No,
he
let
or
me finish.
she once in 2 years has to come to that state and ask people for votes, as opposed to, you know, you win an election once in 5 years and then for 5 years you forget about him or her.
No, but that's exactly how it's been done, except for midterm elections. That's how it is in all the by-elections when they happen after the government gets toppled. And just imagine, and because there is the Kovind report tells us as to how it's possible. There are election commissioners also who have stated this many times over, former election commissioners, that this is feasible indeed. In fact, you just look at the massive deployment that is done. So many officers going on leave. Not just that, you just see the kind of money that is spent, and you see the time, energy, and also people who have to travel back and forth to exercise their franchise, whether it's for Lok Sabha elections or state or local elections.
So let me
I
ask,
think it's a huge waste of time, energy, and
Let me
also
ask,
in terms of
Smith,
governance. In terms of governance, to
let-
be there and not just to. And this hurry to keep dissolving the whole idea that you'll disrupt your assembly, you know, get away with it, get the whole Ayaram Gayaram syndrome will go away when you know.
Let me ask Smita Prakash this. Smita Prakash, you know, here are a couple of hurdles that the BJP NDA needs to overcome if you need to have one nation, one poll. First, for assemblies and general elections, which is the Lok Sabha election, you need a constitutional amendment to be passed both in the Lok Sabha and in the Rajya Sabha, so which means 2/3 majority is required. I will read out the numbers in just 1 second. But if you also want a time, as the Ram Nath Kovind committee recommends, if you want to do local body elections, municipal corporation, panchayat, etc., within 100 days of the general elections, then you need 50% of the state legislatures to also ratify, and right now the BJP does not have that. Now, the point is, even if it is to pass the constitutional amendment, 2/3 majority, what the NDA has right now is 293. Unaffiliated parties, if we include all of them, including, YSRCP, BJD, of course, does not have any Lok Sabha MP, but they have presence in the Rajya Sabha. In the Lok Sabha, it all adds up to 315. Out of 543, if all members are present and voting, 2/3 is 367. Where is the BJP NDA going to get 367 to pass this constitutional amendment?
Right. Realistically speaking, then, one nation, one election seems to be more of an academic debate at present. As you point out, there are a number of hurdles, and it will probably head to the JPC. But it's a box ticked, Zaka. That's how the BJP works. About, somebody mentioned that, it's just one of those things which are done, big ticket items which are brought in by the Modi government just for effect. For that, I just have to point out that, superficially it might seem like that. But it took more than one term for the BJP to get the CAA passed, to get the triple talaq bills passed. It took more than 9 years of one second term, for the Ayodhya temple to be built, and decades, by the way, on the job to get a consensus going on the temple. Article 370 abrogation, it took 8 years of the Modi government, but it happened, right? So this is how the Modi government works. It starts something, it's a debate, it might happen, it may not happen in the first term, second term, third term. That's how they begin. Having completed 100 days in office of the third term, it's going about delivering on the business of what promises it kept. One nation, one election is not part of term 3, by the way. It started in term 2. The panel was set up in the earlier one. Now the NDA has won the election. It will work towards fulfilling its promises. Whether it happens in this term or doesn't happen, it will get the ball rolling. Administrative and electoral reforms are part of that agenda. I mean, these reforms are aimed at improving governance, it's at simplifying, as Shazia pointed out, electoral processes to make it more efficient, cost effective, enhance transparency.
No, but
Smita,
that's the point that Salman was making. That
streamline it, and of course the cost.
That as you said, if it's not realistic, if they don't have the numbers to get it passed, then is it not just a red herring? That's the point he's trying to make, and the opposition is trying to make.
No, I get that. That is why now there is another panel which is going to go and have discussions with them, because they don't have the numbers to steamroll it. But that doesn't mean they put it in the thanda basta, as they say, put it in the back burner. It is something which is part of their agenda, and the Modi government has become extra sensitive in the past 100 days that because they don't have the numbers, they don't want to be seen as policy paralysis government, as was seen with the UPA too. So they don't want that stigma of policy paralysis. So they're going to push forward with their policies and their agenda. Whether that fructifies or not immediately is for everyone to see.
Okay, so Rashid Kidwai, here's the thing. There are countries around the world who have simultaneous elections. I just want to list out a few examples. South Africa, national and provincial elections happen once every 5 years. Municipal elections happen every 2 years.
Indonesia.
So it's timed. Yeah, Indonesia has national elections once every 5 years. Sweden has national, provincial and local elections once every 4 years. The UK, and we have borrowed the Westminster system from the UK. The UK since 2011 has a parliament term which is fixed. It is governed by fixed terms for every 5 years from 2011 onwards, which is why in the last term you had as many as 5 conservative prime ministers, but the term was fixed. So if the UK, from where we have borrowed the Westminster system, can have fixed term parliaments, why can't we have one nation, one election?
Zaka, I think there is a qualitative difference between UK and India, because UK is a unitary system and we have a federal system. This case, it's being, it's a trial balloon. It's a clear case of non-application of mind. Here is a country which has not held, municipal elections are delayed in 1,400 municipal corporations across the country. There are 1,500 municipal corporations which do not have elected standing council. The government, of course, as Smita was saying, government does not have numbers. The whole idea is political. It is to show that, particularly to the middle class, that the opposition is unreasonable. Here is a sort of lofty, concept that will save money and, it will lead to development, which is, of course, would not, hold test of scrutiny. To show that opposition is unreasonable. So the government is coming up with a good idea. To say that government will go for consensus building and hold consultation is also bizarre. Here it comes at a time when leader of opposition is threatened and, with dire consequences, with things that are totally anti, so I would say civility or so, and the government of India remains, totally, mute spectator.
But Rashid, can I flip that argument? Could it also be, Rashid, that, at the end of the day, yes, there are diminished numbers. The BJP NDA will have to do a lot of push and pull and bargaining with some opposition parties, at least if it needs to get these bills through. Is it possible that there could be some kind of understanding, if you support us on one nation, one poll, maybe we'll go easy on the Waqf bill, or vice versa. If you support us on the Waqf bill, then we'll go easy on one nation, one poll. Ultimately, they have to, this whole business of push and pull, which the Modi government in the first 2 terms did not have to face as much. This is now the reality of the third term. So maybe this is for that.
government wants to do this kind of bargaining, then best of luck to them. But to my mind, this is not, possible or feasible because, our political system is very different. Zaka, very fundamental. In democracy, it's about simple majority. The idea of coalition government, single largest party is all, innovations that have been done. So you cannot replace. If government of India is so serious, let us shift from, first past the post to proportional representation. That will lead to a lot of stability. Why government is not thinking of that?
No. But the coalition, the ruling coalition, NDA parties, even TDP, which had not expressed its views to the Kovind panel, has today said that they are supporting One Nation, One Poll. JDU has said that they are supporting One Nation, One Poll. So almost all the parties in the NDA, which is the governing coalition, they have said that they are in support of One Nation, One Poll.
Zaka, let me complete. See, this is a today's position. You see, tomorrow if JDU and TDP, decide to withdraw support, what will happen?
No. Obviously, the government falls. I mean, if they withdraw support, the government falls.
What will happen?
No.
What happens to
No. Point is this, that despite all the numbers of the NDA, they are still about 70 short of what they need to pass this constitutional amendment. But be that as it may, that's a question of math. That's a question of political give and take. I am fundamentally asking about the value of Shazia, 1 second. The value of having One Nation, One Poll. Salman Soz, economic costs. The elections force government machinery to shift focus from what is their regular duty, which is the welfare of tens of millions of people. It costs millions of rupees and also man hours, which are not charged to the election budget. It has to ultimately come from the Government of India's budget. Policy paralysis, model code of conduct. If you're going to have a model code of conduct every 6 months, then it affects the ability of governments to function. No new significant policy can be announced or executed during model code of conduct. Not just model code of conduct, which comes once in 5 years for the general elections, because model code of conduct happens every time there's an assembly election as well, and therefore, from time to time you're impaired by that. And of course, the major cost of deploying security forces and transporting them every time there is a new election. You come from Kashmir. 3 phases. Today, 24 seats went to polls. I think next phase, 18 are going to polls. If we had one nation, one election, the whole state will go one shot along with the Lok Sabha.
Well, we'll see about that, Zaka, but all these issues of cost and other things, people have already written a lot about this, including, by the way, very senior members of the Election Commission who said that these costs are not prohibitive. This is just another red herring. But let me come to a different point, Zaka. If the government was really serious about having discussions with the opposition on this, consultations, first they go to the cabinet, clear it, and then they come to us, they should not be speaking about killing the leader of the opposition. That is not the way to come to talk to the opposition. That is what some of the leaders have been saying about the leader of the opposition, that they'll cut his tongue, may his fate be the same as late Indira Ji's fate. That is, this is not how you talk to the opposition. If they think that this is the way they can talk to the opposition, they're still living in the pre-2024 world.
Shazia, 1 second. Let him finish his point and then I'll come to you.
Let me just finish. So, this, by the way, the last time, and people should remember, the last time they did some sort of an electoral reform, they brought in the electoral bond scheme, which the Supreme Court struck down because it was one of the most corrupt things that has happened in independent India's history. We will not be going down this path no matter what happens, because first the BJP must
Salman, if it's about obnoxious things that have been said about a leader of your party, equally obnoxious things have been said about the Prime Minister, but that's not the subject. That's not the subject matter. That's not the subject matter of tonight's debate. Let's stick to the subject matter of tonight's debate. So Shazia Ilmi, please answer Salman Soz's point. If you were serious about getting the opposition on board, 1 second, Salman, 1 second, please. Shazia Ilmi, if you were serious about getting the opposition on board, you should be talking to them. You've constituted a committee under Mr. Rajnath Singh post facto. You don't do that. You speak to the opposition, build their consensus, and then bring the bill before the cabinet.
So first of all, I mean, Salman Soos spoke about everything else but the point. And of course, I don't want to remind him about Pawan Khera and Modi Teri Kabr Khudegi and Chaukidar Chor Hai, for which Rahul Gandhi was rapped. Knuckles were rapped and by the Supreme Court, none less than that. And many other horrible things, jo Hitler ki chaal chalega, wo Hitler ki maut marega, said by Subhokant Sahai and many others. Let's not even go there. First of all, let me correct a few people here. So the structure we have in India is federal in nature with very strong unitary character. We know that. So it's quasi-unitary, quasi-federal, and we've taken from other constitutions. That's one. Two, and most importantly, few years back, could you imagine, I'm sitting here in Srinagar. Salman and I have been sparring every day at Dal Lake. Could you imagine, and this is only BJP's vision and manifesto, and even this time, one nation, one poll is part of a manifesto, by the way. Could you ever imagine that the Article 370 would be abrogated? That there would be a Ram temple, that there would be 33% reservation for women. So it's with dogged determination and perseverance that we follow ideas.
No, but Shazia, what has any of that got to do with one nation, one poll? If you were able to do one nation, one poll, you're sitting in Srinagar. Why can't you do the whole state in one phase? Tell me why.
I'm just saying that all these things were not possible, but it's possible. One can see that, and nobody could imagine. Just like people can't imagine the one nation, one poll can happen. So BJP has taken very bold, decisive steps. It doesn't give up easily, and because it's part of the manifesto, it has to be discussed in the cabinet meeting. Only then will we work on building consensus. And we've just announced a list of people and a team of people who will work on building consensus on the issue.
Okay.
It doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but we will work on it, and that is our mandate. And I think it's so important because instead of doing everything else but being true to your constituency and expressing the will of the constituent that you are representing, that is a constitutional mandate of every elected legislator.
Smita Prakash,
doing everything else but that.
Here's the
and
thing.
You mentioned,
that because the political reality, the numbers are diminished for the BJP, it's at 240 and not at 303. Now, you can do either of two things. You can either go for the low-hanging fruit, where you can build consensus with the opposition and get those things done, or you can put up these really big-ticket ideas, which clearly a bulk of the opposition have now said that it's dead in the water, they're not going to support it, and then go on and on about it with really not getting any work done. Why has the government chosen the latter as opposed to the former?
Look, I would think that it's a debate which has got going. If it happens, if it fructifies, as I said, it's good for everybody. Frankly, I mean, you tweak it. You tweak the changes so that everybody's point of view is taken. And if you can save money, why not? And if you really speak to the youth of this country, I mean, yes, there are certain people who say that there are benefits of maybe midterm polls happening, maybe once in 2 years polls happening, because it keeps the ruling party, whichever one is in government, it keeps the ruling party in check and balance, that there is a midterm, like it happens in America. But if you speak to the youth of the country and you speak to a majority of the people, I've just come back from Srinagar and Jammu, you speak to the people, there is fatigue, there is that ye kya hai bar in a constantly election mode. Now there's this mistaken assumption that we TV journalists, just because a few people say, oh bada maza aaya elections aake, and that we get eyeballs for channels and all. No, everybody is tired. We are in the midst of J&K and Haryana elections. In November we go into Maharashtra and Jharkhand, and then next year we go to Bihar and Delhi, and then don't forget the municipal elections, which Rashid pointed out has not happened, and the panchayat polls which don't happen. I mean, yes, these things, that the fears are genuine, that it could undermine the federal structure and the federal system that we have. So make the tweak it, make the changes, discuss with everybody. I think the BJP has got around doing this, one, for a political thing, because of this constant haranguing, saying ki, oh, ye chappan ki chhati has shrunk, and there is a rebellion in the BJP, there is a mild paralysis. So I think the government is bringing out all its big ticket ideas. Something might work, something might not work. If it clicks and works, well and good.
So let me ask Rashid. So the first stage, they don't need ratification by the state assemblies, which is for simultaneous Lok Sabha and state assembly elections. But the second stage, which is to hold municipal and panchayat elections, and then of course for all of this to happen, you need to have a single electoral ID and a single electoral roll. For that also, they need 50% ratification by the state legislatures. As of today, the BJP or allied parties are in power in 17 out of 29 states. So they have more than 50%.
Zaka, they could have, along with Lok Sabha election, they could have dissolved those 17, state assemblies and done that. That would have almost been one nation, one poll. But fact of the matter, political, on the political logic, BJP, take my words, will never do this, because you see, things will not remain same. If there is a simultaneous elections in state assemblies and parliament and municipal, then one party wins, another party loses out. So mood of the nation keeps changing. Today there is, of course, the BJP has Mr. Modi as Congress had Indira Gandhi at one point of time, and A.R. Antule had famously said that why do we need elections? Let's elect Indira ji for a lifetime president of India. And this was an idea that was floated by Antule. So what I'm saying is that tomorrow, if BJP loses in Haryana and Maharashtra and so, and then you have one nation, one poll, what will happen to BJP? So the BJP will also, that's what I'm saying. This is just an idea.
But
this is there
the logic
to show
works
opposition
conversely
in bad
too.
light and
But the same logic works.
No, so what is that? What the same logic works conversely? How?
See, to give 51, 52 example
No, I'm
is
saying
also
it can happen
that
also
for
otherwise,
no
right?
option.
It can
I mean,
also.
India
Why is there a
but then
presumption?
there was
Why is there a
70%
presumption that BJP will gain out of it? It can be the
no,
other way
but
around
5 years
also.
behind.
It works.
No.
It can work for BJP.
So
It might not work for BJP.
presumption,
Just like it
the
might
presumption
work.
is
So
that
it's not.
the presumption
So
is that because the BJP is one party and has one tall leader, and therefore the national issues can subsume the local issues if you were to have simultaneous elections. That's the presumption.
No, that is not true, because the elections, like look at Orissa, is the best example. What happened in Orissa? You see what happened in Delhi. So Lok Sabha elections results, people know. Are you questioning the wisdom of the people of the country that they will not be able to decide whether national, and they know. When you choose for a PM, you know what are the issues. When you choose for a CM, you know what are the issues. That's one. Two, the whole fatigue that comes with when you are working in different parts of the country, coming back and voting, and also just with the whole idea, in fact, it ends up with the disenchantment that people can have with the electoral processes to keep on.
You are validating the whole point with the Delhi example, because 3 months ago, BJP got 7 out of 7. 3 months down the line, when we have the assembly election, I want to see how much BJP ends up with. Had they happened simultaneously, it would have actually benefited the BJP. I don't think it would have benefited the Aam Aadmi Party. But anyway, be that as it may, Salman, 30 seconds. I got to wrap up. I'm completely out of time. I have to take a break. Very, very quickly. 30 seconds, Salman Soz.
They could not even hold Jammu and Kashmir's election with the parliamentary election. Nobody was stopping them from doing that. Right?
Okay.
So now this whole idea.
But nobody stopped you from having panchayat elections, GDC elections,
That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm out of time. But like I said, whether this is a red herring or whether the BJP is actually serious about it, Smita Prakash made that point that it took decades for the Ram Mandir to be built. It took decades for 370 to be abrogated. So this is an idea that the BJP, in principle, believes in. It may not have the numbers to do it in this term, but it's something that they want to keep there in the front burner, if nothing else, to show to their constituents, to show to the people who voted for the BJP and NDA that this is a centerpiece issue for them in this third term.